Hello and welcome to Season 1, Episode 1 of the Port Migration Partner Visa podcast. If you and your partner are planning to apply for an Australian partner visa, this podcast is your roadmap. We know the Australian partner visa process is often described as one of the longest, most expensive, and most emotionally challenging visa processes in the world. Getting your application right from the start is essential. And that's exactly what we're here to help you do. In this first episode, we're going to fast track your research and get you started on the right path. Over the next 8 episodes, we'll be sharing industry insider insights gained from over a decade of experience helping couples just like you successfully apply for Australian partner visas. At Port Migration, we've seen it all: onshore, offshore, straightforward and complex applications, and we know what works. So instead of relying on advice from well-meaning but unqualified strangers on the internet, you'll get clear, reliable guidance from registered professionals who do this work every day. In this podcast, we'll be covering the 3 main types of partner visas: the subclass 820-801 onshore partner visa, the subclass 309-100 offshore partner visa, and the subclass 300 prospective marriage visa. If you're somewhere on the journey, whether you're just starting your research, you're already preparing your evidence, or even if you've already submitted your application, you're in the right place. These episodes are designed to be listened to in order from start to finish because the information builds episode by episode. Each one will leave you feeling more informed, more confident, and more in control of your partner visa journey. Whether you're listening while commuting, out for a walk, or relaxing at home, we recommend setting aside time to work your way through all 8 episodes. We promise it will be time well spent. The Port Migration Partner Visa podcast is available in both video and audio format. It's available on all your favourite podcast platforms. So while you're here, please like this episode, subscribe to our channel, turn on notifications, and share this podcast with your partner. We'd love to hear where you're listening from. Drop the flag of your country in the comments to let us know. Your support helps other couples find this podcast too. If you haven't already, now is the perfect time to download our ultimate guide to partner visas. It's value-packed and it's completely free. We like to call it the most popular partner visa guide on the internet, and thousands of couples have used it to supercharge their research. The link is in the description, or just comment guide and we'll send it your way. At Port Migration, we are MARA registered Australian migration agents. You'll find our registration details in the description, and you can also verify them on the official Migration Agents Registration Authority website, the MARA. Always check that the person giving you Australian visa or migration advice is legally authorised to do so. Your visa is too important to leave in the wrong hands. Wherever you're joining us from, whether you're in Australia or overseas, welcome to the podcast. And if you're already part of our online community, thank you for being here. We appreciate your support and are so glad to have you back. Finally, before we dive in, please listen to this disclaimer. The information in this podcast is general in nature. It doesn't take into account your personal circumstances or specific visa needs, and it is not intended as migration advice. For advice tailored to your unique situation, please use the links in the description to get in touch with our experienced team. We'd love to help. Now that we've set the scene, let's talk about why the Australian partner visa process feels so complex and what you can do about it. There's no getting around the fact that the Australian partner visa application process is complicated. The Australian partner visa application process is often described as one of the longest, most expensive and emotionally challenging visa processes in the world. And here's the thing: most couples don't expect that. You're making one of the most exciting, life-changing decisions of your relationship to build a future together in Australia. You're thinking about love, commitment, life plans, not necessarily about forms, evidence, paperwork, legislation, and bureaucracy. But that's exactly where so many couples find themselves. Dropped unexpectedly into a system that feels more like a legal process than a love story, and suddenly you're faced with layers of government policy, document requirements, strict deadlines, and uncertainty. When I first became a registered migration agent in 2015, even I was surprised by how complex the process really is. I remember thinking, surely, if your partner is Australian, they should be able to get a visa. But I quickly learned having an Australian partner doesn't automatically grant you the right to stay in Australia. There are hoops to jump through, and they can feel endless if you don't know what you're doing. There are a few reasons why it's like this. First, it's a high demand visa. Around 60,000 couples apply for a partner visa every year. That's a huge number. And with that volume of applications comes longer processing times and more rigorous checks. Second, it's a high stakes application. When you apply for a partner visa, you're essentially applying for Australian permanent residency. And with permanent residency comes access to Medicare, social services, work rights, and eventually the ability to apply for Australian citizenship when you meet the requirements. It makes sense that the government takes these applications seriously. Third, the system is designed to protect. Whenever you're moving people across borders, especially in intimate partner relationships and possibly including children, there's a risk of exploitation. That's why the process includes strict safeguards to protect potentially vulnerable adults and children. It's not about making things difficult. It's about making things safe. And safety takes time. And finally, many delays and complications happen because of applicant error. The system is complicated, yes, but it's often made harder by mistakes, missing documents, incorrect assumptions, or poor quality evidence. So let's have a look at how to be successful. If the system is complex, it's important to understand what you actually need to focus on to navigate it successfully. That's where our framework comes in. After working with lots of couples over many years, we've narrowed it down to what we call the 3 E's of partner visa success: eligibility, evidence, and errors. These are the 3 factors that make or break a partner visa application. Let's break them down. Eligibility is where everything starts. If you're not eligible, nothing else matters. And yet, this is often the step people rush through, or worse, skip entirely. It's not enough to be in a loving relationship. You have to meet specific legal and immigration requirements to even apply. The visa application fee is high and it's rising every year. So before you invest your time, energy, and money, you need to know if you're eligible. Eligibility is everything. We'll go deeper into eligibility in just a moment, but first, let's briefly touch on the other 2 E's. Evidence is essential. Unfortunately, telling Home Affairs that you're in a genuine relationship isn't enough. You have to prove it. And that means providing strong, clear, and well-organised evidence that meets very specific requirements. If you're thinking, we've got nothing to hide, we're a real couple, you're not alone. But even genuine couples can be refused if their evidence is weak or incomplete or doesn't tick the boxes that the immigration decision maker is looking for. In future episodes, we'll take a detailed look at what kinds of evidence you need and how to prepare it. Evidence is essential. Finally, we have errors. Errors are the silent killers of partner visa applications. We see them all the time. People uploading the wrong documents, misunderstanding timelines, or failing to meet critical requirements. And sadly, these mistakes can lead to long delays or even refusal. Let's face it, errors can be awful. The good news? Most errors are completely avoidable if you know what to look out for. And we'll be talking about those in a future episode too. It's so important to understand how to succeed in the partner visa process. Here's what it comes down to. You can't control the number of applications Home Affairs receives. You can't control the complexity of the system or the fact that it's rigorous, and rightly so. But you can control the quality of the application you submit, and that's what we focus on here. It all starts with eligibility, so let's dive into what that really means. As part of understanding eligibility, it's important to get your head around the 3 main types of partner visas available and how the process actually works. The first thing to know is that most Australian partner visas are granted in 2 stages. The first stage is the temporary visa, which gives you full work rights, access to Medicare, and the ability to live in Australia with your partner. The second stage is the permanent visa, which is usually granted 2 years after the temporary visa is applied for, once you've shown that your relationship is ongoing. That 2-stage process applies to both onshore and offshore partner visas, and it's a core part of the system. Now let's break down the 3 main visa subclasses you'll hear about. The subclass 820-801 partner visa is the onshore visa. This is for people who are already in Australia on another visa, like a visitor visa, student visa, or working visa, and who want to apply for their partner visa without leaving the country. If you meet the eligibility requirements and apply while onshore, you'll usually be granted a bridging visa that allows you to stay in Australia lawfully while your application is being processed. You'll be granted the 820 temporary visa first, followed by the 801 permanent visa later on. The subclass 309-100 partner visa is the offshore option. It's designed for couples who are applying while the applicant is outside Australia. With this pathway, the applicant must be offshore when they submit the application. Once granted, they can enter Australia and begin their life together here. The permanent 100 visa is processed later, usually 2 years after the initial application. Then there's the subclass 300 prospective marriage visa. This is for couples who are engaged but not yet married. It's a temporary visa that allows the applicant to come to Australia to get married within a set time frame. Once the marriage has taken place, the couple can then apply for the onshore 820-801 partner visa pathway. This option is often used when the couple hasn't lived together long enough to meet the de facto requirements or when they plan to marry in Australia. Choosing the right visa depends on your relationship history, your future plans, and where you and your partner are located when you apply. And as always, making sure you're eligible for the visa type, for the 2-stage process, and for the relationship requirements is the most important place to start. Eligibility is the first and most important step. Eligibility is everything. Not every couple is eligible to apply for a partner visa. We sometimes meet couples who learn this after they've submitted their application and paid their application fee. And if you're not eligible, there are situations where no amount of evidence or explanation can save the application. So let's go through the basics. You're generally eligible to apply for an Australian partner visa if you're married or in a de facto relationship with an Australian citizen, permanent resident, or eligible New Zealand citizen. You need to meet the health and character requirements, meaning no significant health conditions or serious criminal history. You're lawfully in Australia or applying from overseas and meet the basic criteria for the visa subclass you're applying for. The subclass 300 prospective marriage visa is for couples who've met in real life, are legally allowed to marry in Australia, and are applying for a visa so they can marry in Australia and apply for the subclass 820-801 partner visa. If that sounds like you, great, you're in the right place. But please note that there are some things which we specifically do not cover in this podcast series. There are a range of circumstances which can impact eligibility or the requirements for your application that we do not talk about in this podcast series. These include, but are not limited to, situations where couples don't meet the marriage or de facto relationship requirements for complex reasons, if you're in Australia and you're unlawful, if you're in Australia and you're Section 48 barred, if you're subject to a re-entry ban, if you're onshore with a no further stay condition, condition 8503 on your current visa, if you or your partner have previous sponsorships, or if you have health concerns, or if you or your partner have character concerns. We also do not cover requirements for the inclusion of dependent children in this podcast series. If you've listened this far and you're unsure about eligibility, don't panic. I'm about to explain some of the ways you can tap into the decade of experience we've built helping couples just like you succeed with their partner visas. Start with our free guide to partner visas. Thousands of couples have used it to take the stress out of the early research phase and get their application moving in the right direction. It's free, it's easy to follow, and it's helped thousands of couples just like you start their journey with confidence. If you're looking for practical tools to make the process easier, don't miss our relationship statement guide. It's one of the most downloaded resources on our site for a reason. And remember, you don't have to go through this alone. If you're feeling unsure, jump on a free call with one of our MARA registered agents or choose the extended consultation option. We can explain our done-for-you service in detail. We're here to walk the journey with you from start to finish. Now, your love story is unique, but over the last 10 years, we've seen some common patterns in the way couples navigate this process. In the next episode, I'll walk you through the most common partner visa pathways, the real-world situations we see every day. Whether you're applying onshore or offshore, married or de facto, long distance or living together, you'll probably recognise yourself in one of these scenarios, and you might be surprised how many couples we've helped in situations just like yours. Thanks so much for listening today. We really appreciate you being here. If you found this episode helpful, please take a moment to follow or subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you're listening on so you don't miss future episodes. And if you're listening on YouTube, give it a like and let us know in the comments what stage of the partner visa journey you're on. This podcast is here to support you, and we've got lots more practical, real-world advice coming up. Until next time, all the best with your application.